They tried everything. Sedatives, shackles layered with silver and spells, priests, mages, even the palace seer whispering ancient words until her voice broke. Nothing worked. The Alpha King's rage burned hotter than the storm splitting the sky above the palace. Thunder rolled. Somewhere down the corridor, someone screamed. In the wrecked throne room, King Damon's shadow crest strained against iron chains sunk into black stone. His eyes glowed a bleeding red. Claw marks scored the pillars. Guards kept their distance. His own beta couldn't step within 10 feet without being thrown across the floor by a blast of wild power. "Stand down!" someone shouted. "Clear the hall!" Another crash. A statue shattered. The king's snarl rattled the chandeliers. And then, silence. Not because the storm calmed, but because she walked in. A girl who shouldn't be there. A rejected Omega everyone called worthless. What she did next changed everything. The palace had not slept in 7 nights. Servants crept along the walls like ghosts. Guards rotated in a grim circle, armor dented, eyes rimmed red. Every corridor smelled of rain, steel, and fear. In the center of it all, the throne room pulsed with a living, dangerous heartbeat. The king's. Damon Shadowcrest had ruled 5 kingdoms with a steady hand and an iron will. Now his control was gone, chewed to pieces by a curse nobody could name. Silver shackles crossed his chest and bound his wrists. A ring of runes burned under his boots. Even chained, he felt too large for the room, 6.5 feet of muscle and fury, veins thrumming with power that wouldn't listen. "His rage is eating him alive," the royal healer whispered, standing well behind the safety line. "Whatever this is, it amplifies his wolf until there's nothing human left." The beta, scarred and loyal, paced just outside the ripple of force that shoved away anything foolish enough to draw close. Twice he tried to step in. Twice the air itself hurled him back, ribs cracking the first time, pride the second. He stayed on his feet, though, jaw locked. There must be a way. He's our king. On the dais, 3 advisors argued in harsh, low voices. "If we cannot calm him, we must put him down," said the oldest, the words tasting like ash. "Do that," hissed another, "and every pack in the 5 kingdoms will rise. You think they'll forgive you for killing the Alpha King in his own hall?" The third, a woman with hair like winter steel, watched the chains grind and spark. "None of this matters if he tears the palace apart before dawn." Thunder rolled again, shaking loose dust from the high beams. Red light flickered in Damon's eyes. He dragged the chains until the bolts groaned, breath coming ragged, a sound too close to a wolf's for comfort. His power surged, hit the runes, and spilled outward in a hot wave. Everyone flinched. Even from a distance, it stung the skin like needles. "Your Majesty," the beta called, voice steady out of sheer stubbornness. "Hold the line. Focus on my voice. Breathe." For one heartbeat, the red dulled. Then the beast inside him slammed forward, and the world snapped back to violent. Far below the throne room, in the warm clatter of the palace kitchens, Aria Nightshade stacked bundles of herbs into a shallow wooden tray. She didn't belong anywhere near the court. Everyone said so. Rejected at 18 for being too weak, wolfless, defective, she'd learned to keep her eyes on the floor and her hands busy. Work. Breathe. Don't want too much. The storm whispered down the chimney. Somewhere above, something heavy crashed. "Stay here," the scullery mistress warned, worry lines deep around her mouth. "They've chained the king again. It's too dangerous." "I'm just delivering to the infirmary," Aria said, but the words felt thin. The sound she heard wasn't metal or stone. It was a pulse, steady and urgent, beating under the noise of the storm. It tugged at her ribs, at something nameless inside her. like a thread pulling tight. She tucked the tray against her hip and stepped into the service corridor. The air changed with each stair, cooler, cleaner, edged with the sharp bite of silver. Guards barked orders on the landing. Aria kept to the wall, head down, sliding past as they thundered by. She should have turned right for the infirmary. She turned left. At the final bend before the throne room, 2 spearmen crossed halberds in front of her. No entry, by order of the beta. I have herbs, she said, hating how small her voice sounded. The pulse pressed harder. The world narrowed to a point somewhere ahead. Light, heat, a swirling river of pain. They said the healers. Turn around, the guard snapped. You want to die? She should have listened. She'd made a life out of listening. But the pulse became a plea, and the plea became a certainty. Not words, not a command. Just a need, like breath. Please, she whispered. Let me try. The guard stared. She didn't look like a threat. A slim girl in a threadbare dress. Hair braided back. A faded scarf hiding the ragged scar at her neck. The mark that never quite faded after rejection. One guard's expression softened for a beat, then hardened again. Orders are orders. The beta's shout cut across the hall. Brace! Aria flinched as a wave of power hammered the doors. The crossbars jumped in their brackets. One iron hinge screamed. The guard swore, bracing the halberds. A second surge, and somewhere deep, something in Aria answered. It wasn't magic like the seers. It wasn't a shift. It was a simple, stubborn steadiness, rising to meet the wild storm and hold. She looked at the doors, looked at her hands, put the tray down. I'm going in, she said, surprised that the words came out firm. Girl! She didn't wait. The next pulse hit. She stepped with it, slid under one guard's arm as the other reached for her, and pushed through the small gap when the doors rattled open. The throne room swallowed her whole. Shattered stone, broken banners, a circle of scorched floor around the dais where nothing living dared to stand. And the king. Up close, the sight stripped the breath from her chest. He was beautiful and terrible at once, broad shoulders bowed against the chains, jaw clenched so hard a vein throbbed in his cheek, eyes burning like coals under a wind. His power rushed and broke and rushed again, cracking against the runes like black water against rock. He drew in a shuddering breath, scenting the air, and the red in his gaze flared brighter. Get back! Someone shouted. He'll kill you! Aria's feet kept moving. She didn't understand why, only that stopping felt wrong, like refusing to breathe. The closer she came, the calmer the air felt. Not safe, never safe, but less wild, as if the storm recognized a shoreline. Your Majesty, she said softly, though she wasn't sure he could hear words through that roar. Look at me. His gaze snapped to her. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. The red burned. Her fear curled up tight, but it didn't break her. She lifted a hand palm open, showing she carried no weapon. Her fingers trembled only once. Then she stepped inside the line of runes, into the place no one could stand. The power slammed forward to throw her back. It didn't. It hit, met that steady something inside her, and settled. Aria reached him, laid her hand against the heat of his chest, above a heartbeat gone ragged and wild. The storm held its breath. The chains went silent. Outside, thunder rolled away across the sky. Inside, the Alpha King's eyes flickered, red to silver, silver to red, as if the beast and the man both leaned toward the same quiet. Breathe, Aria whispered. For the first time in 7 days, he did. For a long, fragile moment, nothing moved. Aria's palm rested over the king's heart, and the hall listened to the sound of a single breath learning itself again. Damon's eyes, once fire, flickered, then steadied to a pale, moonlit silver. The crimson rage receded like a tide pulling back from jagged rocks. He didn't lunge. He didn't roar. He simply exhaled, a sound halfway between a groan and a prayer, and the chains stopped screaming against the stone. Whispers broke in the gallery. A guard's halberd clattered as his fingers went slack. The beta swore under his breath and took a careful step forward, testing the air. No blast hit him this time. "Hold," he warned everyone, not taking his eyes off Aria. "No sudden moves." Aria didn't dare breathe too deeply. The heat of Damon's chest burned through her palm, a steady thrum beneath her hand. He blinked once, twice. The tendons in his neck eased. The wolf didn't vanish. It watched her from behind those silver eyes, curious and wary, but no longer hunting. "Easy," she whispered, and wasn't sure if she said it to him or to herself. Damon's head tipped toward her touch, as if he'd been drowning for 7 nights, and someone just opened a door to air. "Don't—" The word rasped out of him, rough as gravel. "Let go." Aria swallowed. "I won't." The beta dared another step. "Your Majesty?" Damon's gaze slid past Aria and found the beta's shape at the edge of sight. The muscle in his jaw ticked. But no wave of force flew. He looked back to Aria instead, as if anchoring to the steadiness in her eyes, then lowered his head until his forehead nearly touched her shoulder. The chains lost their terrible tension, sagging an inch. A shuffle of silk announced the advisors. The woman with winter steel hair, Celine, descended the dais, controlled and cold. "What is your name, girl?" "Aria," she said, though her attention stayed on Damon, watching for any flicker of red. "Aria what?" "Nightshade." Celine's gaze cut to the beta. Information slid into place behind her eyes. The rejected one from the river quarter? Heat rose in Aria's cheeks, a reflex she hated. She started to pull her hand back, shame prickling where her scarf hid the ragged scar. Damon's fingers closed around her wrist, gentle but final. "Stay," he said, voice low, as if any louder sound might break whatever mercy had found him. "Please." The courtiers flinched at the word please. Kings didn't beg. Not this king. At the rear of the hall, the seer shuffled forward, skirts brushing the scorched floor. Age bent her back, but power moved in the lines of her face. Quiet, certain patient as roots. She did not step into the ruined circle. She only lifted a palm and breathed a thin thread of sound that wasn't quite language. The air folded around it. Her clouded eyes settled on Aria. "Child," she murmured, "show me your neck." Aria froze. Instinct sent her free hand to the scarf. She had hidden that mark for years, out of pride, out of pain. Her fingers hesitated. Damon's grip on her wrist softened, not controlling, simply there, waiting. She took a breath and tugged the scarf aside. The rejection scar gleamed faintly like an old burn, except now, beneath the brown silver light, woke and traced thin lines through it, like moonlight finding a path along a riverbed. A collective inhale scraped the hall. The seer's mouth curved, not with delight, but with recognition. "Hush," she told the room, though no one had spoken. She lifted her palm again, and the faint silver in Aria's skin answered with a soft pulse. True bond sings in her. But not only that. Celine's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Her mark is not fading," the seer said. "It is transforming." She tilted her head, listening to something no one else could hear. Not a simple wound. A binding layered into a rejection. Old work, cruel work. Someone tried to chain her worth to another's word. Aria swallowed, nausea and anger tangling low in her stomach. "Who?" The seer didn't answer. She looked at Damon. "Majesty, do you feel the pressure in your chest easing where it clung?" He closed his eyes as if searching inside his body. The bite is quiet. He opened them again, fixing on Aria. Because of her. Selene stepped closer, voice like a blade hidden in silk. Or because of what she carries. We don't know this girl. We don't know who placed that binding. She could be a lever aimed at your throat. At that, Damon's power pricked the air. Not a wave, not a blast, just a warning flicker. Aria felt it and, without thinking, pressed her palm more firmly to his chest. The prickle eased. "I'm not a weapon," Aria said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her own voice. "I'm just me." The seer's attention sharpened. "Yes," she breathed, almost to herself. "That is the shape of it." Selene's expression didn't change, but something in her took note of the way Damon responded only to Aria's touch. "And if your me unravels the 5 kingdoms, if the wolves outside these walls hear we tied our king's life to a rejected Omega?" The word landed like a slap. Rejected. Old humiliation rose, hot and choking, but Aria held her ground. She had done everything small for years. Walk softly, speak softly, want softly. Her palm was on a king's chest. She didn't know how to be small right now. "Then we tell them the truth," she said quietly. "No one else could help him. I did." Silence. Then the beta huffed once, half laugh, half disbelief. "Can't argue the results." Selene turned her face toward the seer. "Is it a mate bond?" The seer's fingers drifted through the air above Aria's shoulder, as if smoothing the surface of unseen water. "It is a bond. Old and right. But it is tangled." Her eyes slipped back to the scar at Aria's neck, where silver lines brightened by degrees, mapping delicate runes under the skin. Another voice sits on her mark, trying to speak through her. It will not keep silent for long. Damon's grip tightened. Not harsh, protective. Whose voice? Before the seer could answer, horns cut through the storm, 3 notes, low and bruised, rolling in from the outer gates. Every head snapped toward the high windows. The beta swore again, this time without restraint. Bloodfang horns. Selene's gaze chilled. Of course. "Who?" Aria began, but she didn't need the explanation. The name came with the echo of a memory she had spent years trying not to touch. Amber eyes, a smile too sharp to be kind, and a voice that had once said mine like a promise, and then unworthy like a sentence. The seer's attention shifted to the doors, where distant footsteps gathered like thunder under the thunder. "The one who wove the binding approaches," she said softly. "The voice on your mark comes to collect." Damon lifted his head from Aria's shoulder. The silver in his eyes hardened to a blade. The chains hummed, not with frenzy now, but with the quiet readiness of a hunter who has found his focus at last. He will not touch her. "Majesty," Selene warned, "hold your strength. We still don't know." "We know enough," the beta said, already turning to bark orders. "Form ranks. Clear the civilians." Aria's hand stayed where it was, the steady shore the storm had chosen. The silver lines in her scar brightened once, then again, answering those horns with a pulse that felt like defiance. Beyond the gates, the bloodfang banners snapped in the rain. Inside the broken throne room, a rejected Omega stood in front of a king, and for the first time since her rejection, she did not flinch when fate looked her in the eye. The rain outside turned the palace courtyard into a mirror of firelight and mud. Torches wavered, reflecting off armor as soldiers scrambled to form lines. From the high balcony, Aria could see the storm gathering over the main gates. A wave of red banners stamped with the sigil of a bleeding fang. The blood fang pack. Her old pack. Her curse in flesh and iron. Thunder rolled again, louder, closer. The gates shuddered as horns sounded once more, 3 long blasts that made the stone tremble under her feet. The palace guards shifted, uneasy. They all knew what that sound meant. War was at the doorstep. Aria felt Damon move beside her, the chains still around his wrists but loose enough now to slide with his steps. The silver in his eyes gleamed brighter with each flash of lightning. There was no trace of the broken king she'd found in the darkness. Now he looked like a weapon rediscovered, dangerous, awake, and ready to strike. "Bloodfang dares approach here," he growled, the words more wolf than man. "He knows he's not welcome in my lands." Celine's voice was steady but sharp. "Majesty, if you act now, the curse could resurge. We can't risk it. You are still vulnerable." Aria's gaze flicked toward the silver runes, faintly glowing across her own neck. They pulsed once, matching the thunder. "It's not just him," she whispered. "He's calling through the mark." Damon turned to her, the edge in his voice softening. "You feel him?" She nodded. "It's like he's inside my skin, whispering. Every time he gets closer, it burns hotter." The doors slammed open. The beta entered, dripping rain and urgency. "Your Majesty, Bloodfang's warriors demand entry. They carry Prince Kael's banner and claim he has come to parley." Celine scoffed. "Parley? He brings 50 soldiers. That's not diplomacy. That's intimidation." Aria went pale. The name alone hit her like a blow to the ribs. Kael Bloodfang. The man who'd marked her as his mate when she was barely 18. The man who'd smiled when the moon goddess revealed her as wolfless. And who'd spat, "Then you're nothing." Her hand rose to the faint scar again. It burned hotter now, silver threads spreading under her skin like living veins. Damon noticed. "He did this to you?" Aria hesitated, then nodded. "He rejected me, but the seer said it wasn't a normal bond. There's something tied inside it." Damon's jaw tightened. "Then he bound you with dark magic. He'll regret every breath that led him here." Celine stepped forward, tone cutting. "Your Majesty, if you confront him in this state." But the doors to the throne room opened again before she could finish, and there he was. Prince Kael Bloodfang strode in like he owned the air. His long coat was dark with rain, his golden hair plastered back, amber eyes gleaming like a predator's beneath the torchlight. He didn't bow, didn't even glance at the guards. Behind him, his warriors spread out in perfect formation, disciplined and smug. "My king," Kael said with mock respect. "I came as soon as I heard of your misfortune." His gaze slid past Damon, straight to Aria. "And imagine my surprise to find my little Omega here. Did you miss me?" The room tensed. Damon stepped forward, the chains rattling against the floor. "Watch your tongue." Kael smiled, sharp and cold. "Oh, I intend to. She belongs to me, after all." Aria felt the mark on her neck flare, a searing pain shooting through her veins. She gasped, stumbling back. Damon caught her before she fell, his arms instinctively wrapping around her waist. Kael's smile widened. "See? She answers my call. The bond still works." "Your bond," Damon growled, "is a lie." Kael's eyes glinted. "No lie, Majesty. I made her. I rejected her to break her spirit, but I never severed the link. She's Moonborn, a creature rare enough to change the course of kingdoms. Her power feeds on emotion, and I've been cultivating her pain for years. Every tear, every scar, every lonely night, all of it fed into me." Celine's voice trembled uncharacteristically. "You bound a Moonborn? That's forbidden, even among the High Wolves." Kael turned lazily toward her. "Forbidden? Perhaps. But effective." His grin deepened. "I've come to collect what's mine. The girl, and the power she holds." The air vibrated with tension. Damon moved between Aria and Kael, his voice a dangerous whisper. over my dead body. Kyle tilted his head. That can be arranged. He snapped his fingers. Behind him, 2 Bloodfang mages began chanting. The air shimmered, and Aria's mark burned white-hot. Her knees buckled. Damon tried to hold her, but she cried out, a sound raw enough to make the guards flinch. "Stop it!" she gasped. He's inside my head." Kale's voice was velvet and poison. "Walk to me, little Omega." Her body twitched, fighting invisible strings. Her feet slid an inch forward, then another. Damon gripped her shoulders, but she was pulled like a puppet on wires. "Aria, look at me," Damon ordered, his voice shaking the air. "You are stronger than him. Fight it!" Her eyes darted between them, Kale's cruel smirk and Damon's fierce, desperate gaze. Tears mixed with the rain still clinging to her face. "I can't," Kale laughed softly. "She can't resist the command. I built it into her blood." Damon's power surged again, the silver light in his eyes flashing to pure white. "Then I'll tear that bond from her veins myself." He pulled her back into his chest, his aura flaring outward like a shield. The ground cracked under his feet, light shattering from the chains that still hung at his wrists. Kyle's smirk faltered for the first time. "Careful, Majesty. The more you use your strength, the faster the curse eats you alive." Damon didn't care. His energy wrapped around Aria like moonfire, forcing the white glow at her neck to flicker. Kale's tone turned sharp. "You think you can outmatch my spell? Every heartbeat of hers belongs to me." Damon's snarl shook the windows. "Not anymore." With a roar, the last of his chains shattered, bursting into molten fragments that hissed against the floor. He stood tall, unbound, the full force of an Alpha King blazing from him. Kale took one slow step back, eyes narrowing. "You're killing yourself, Shadow Crest. The moon's bane still runs in your blood. Push too far, and you'll burn out before dawn." Damon's voice dropped to a growl. "Then I'll burn for her." Lightning split the sky outside, flooding the hall in silver light. Aria clung to him, trembling, the heat on her mark finally fading as Kale's control broke under the surge of power between them. Kale's eyes flickered with something colder now. Not arrogance, but calculation. "Enjoy your small victory," he said, turning toward the doors. "At dawn, we finish this. You, me, and the girl who doesn't yet know what she is." He smiled one last time, cruel and calm. "When I'm done, I'll have your throne, and your mate." Then he was gone, leaving silence, rain, and the faint echo of a bond that refused to die. Aria pressed her fingers to her neck, the faint silver still glowing under her skin. What did he mean? What I am? Damon's expression hardened. "We'll find out. But whatever he made you, Aria, you belong to no one." She looked up at him, eyes trembling, voice barely a whisper. "Then why does it still hurt?" Outside thunder rolled again, as if the storm itself was waiting for her answer. The night dragged into a pale gray dawn. The palace didn't sleep. Guards paced the corridors, servants whispered prayers, and healers carried herbs no one would use. In the throne room, the air still smelled of smoke and storm. King Damon Shadowcrest stood before the shattered windows, staring into the bruised sky where the Bloodfang banners still fluttered in the rain-soaked courtyard. His wrists were raw from the broken chains, his heartbeat steady, but burning. The silver in his eyes gleamed faintly, an ember under ash. Behind him, Celine and the Beta argued in low, clipped tones. "He can't fight," Celine said. "The curse isn't gone, it's only sleeping. If he shifts, the poison will spread through his veins before he lands the first blow." The Beta's reply was sharp. "Then we find another way. He can't sit behind walls while Kale mocks us." "He can, and he must," Celine snapped. "He's not just a man. He's the symbol of 5 kingdoms. If he falls, everything burns. Damon turned slowly. Enough. His voice carried no heat, only quiet authority that froze both advisors mid-argument. Cale wants to fight me, and I'll give him his wish. Selene stared. Majesty? He raised a hand, cutting her off. Every life under this roof depends on me ending him. He knows the curse will kill me if I fight, yet he challenges me anyway. That means he believes I won't take the risk. His jaw tightened. He's wrong. Aria stood near the edge of the ruined hall, listening in silence. The storm had soaked her hair and dress, but she barely felt the chill. Her thoughts were loud enough to drown the wind. She replayed Kyle's voice in her mind, the way his words slid under her skin like knives. Every tear you shed belongs to me. It made her want to scream. She looked down at her hands. They were small, ordinary, but faint threads of silver light still flickered beneath the skin, as though something ancient was stirring. The seer had been silent all night, sitting near the dais, eyes closed. Now she spoke without opening them. The bond between them is not broken. It's twisted. If Cale dies before it's cleansed, the magic will recoil and take her with it. Selene hissed through her teeth. Perfect. So killing him kills her too. Aria lifted her chin. Then we find another way. Damon turned to her. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Her eyes met his. He's after me, not you. He bound me because he knew I'd end up here, with you. Maybe he planned this from the start. Damon's expression darkened. Then he's cleverer than I thought, and more doomed than he realizes. The seer's head tilted. Majesty, there is something else you should know. Cale's words tonight, they hid another curse. The wine you drank at yesterday's council was touched by Moon's bane venom. That poison lies quiet now, waiting for your next shift. The moment you transform, it will burn through your heart. The beta cursed under his breath. Selene's face went pale. Damon didn't move. So, every strike I throw against him will cost me my life. Aria stepped forward. Then don't fight him. His gaze softened for a heartbeat. I can't avoid it, Aria. You saw how he commands power. He won't stop until he owns you, or destroys me. She clenched her fists. There has to be something. Magic stronger than his. Some way to break this before dawn. The seer's eyes opened, pale as frost. There is. But it's a path walked only by the desperate. It's called the goddess trial. The room stilled. Aria frowned. The what? The moon goddess allows her children one choice, to break every bond ever forged upon them. But the trial demands your truth. If you fail, your soul burns away. Selene's mouth twisted. You'd send her to die on a myth? The seer ignored her. The pool of moonlight lies deep beneath the temple ruins. The way will open only for one willing to stand alone before the goddess herself. Aria's pulse quickened. If I pass, Cale's curse will break. All bonds, real and false, will shatter. You will belong only to yourself. The word struck something inside her, a longing so sharp it almost hurt. To belong to no one. To be free. Damon stepped closer, his power brushing the air like static. No, you're not doing this. Aria looked up at him, voice calm but steady. It's my choice. You could die. So could you, she countered. You're ready to risk your life to fight him. Let me risk mine to end this. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. If you vanish into that pool, I can't follow. I can't protect you. Her voice softened. You already did. You saved me when you believed no one could. Now let me save myself. For the first time since the storm began, Damon's composure cracked. Aria, I just got you back from his control. I won't lose you to the moon. She reached up, fingertips brushing his cheek, If you love me, you'll let me choose. That stopped him. Love wasn't a word she'd meant to use. It slipped out, fragile and true. Damon's eyes searched hers for a long, aching moment. Then he closed them, exhaled slowly, and nodded once. Then choose, he whispered. But if you fail, I'll tear down the heavens to bring you back. Aria smiled faintly, though her throat burned. That's exactly why I have to do this, so you don't have to. She turned, walking toward the side corridor that led to the temple beneath the palace. Every step felt heavier, but the silver under her skin brightened like starlight guiding her way. The beta watched her go. We're really letting her do this? Celine's answer was quiet. We can't stop her. And maybe the goddess will listen. Damon stood motionless for a long while, staring after her. Then he unfastened the last of the broken chains still hanging from his wrists and let them fall. Prepare the courtyard, he said finally, his voice low and steady. At dawn, I'll face Kale. Selene turned, shocked. Majesty, the poison. He cut her off with a look. If she's risking her soul, I can risk my life. He glanced toward the dark hallway where Aria had vanished. And if the goddess is merciful, neither of us will have to die. Outside, the storm began to thin. Moonlight breaking through the clouds in fractured beams, as if the heavens themselves were listening. The moon had already begun its slow descent when Aria reached the ancient staircase beneath the palace. Torches hissed in their brackets, the air heavy with the scent of wet stone and forgotten prayers. Every step she took echoed against the walls, soft but certain, leading her deeper into the earth where the old temple waited, a place the world had long since sealed away. Her heartbeat was a drum. Her palms were cold. But inside her chest, that strange silver glow pulsed stronger with every breath, like a star calling home. At the bottom of the staircase, a carved door waited, half marble, half moonlight. Its surface shimmered faintly, alive with shifting symbols she somehow understood without ever learning them. She pressed her hand to the stone. The symbols flared, warm against her skin, and the door opened soundlessly. The chamber beyond was vast and circular. At its center lay a pool of liquid light that rippled like water but glowed like dawn. The air vibrated with a quiet hum, a song without words. Aria hesitated on the edge. The stories came rushing back. How no one had survived the trial in 200 years. How the moon goddess stripped every false thing from you until only truth remained, and how truth was a blade sharper than any claw. Her throat tightened. She thought of Damon upstairs, of the poison slowly gnawing at his heart, of the storm gathering for the duel he refused to escape. She thought of Kale, and the years she'd spent believing his rejection defined her. And then she stepped into the pool. The surface rippled once and swallowed her whole. For an instant she couldn't breathe. Then she was standing, not in water, not in stone, but in light. Endless silver light stretching into forever. She was alone. Aria Nightshade. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It wasn't loud, yet it filled the space until her bones trembled. She turned slowly. The moon goddess appeared before her, neither young nor old, her form shifting like smoke. One heartbeat woman, the next wolf. Her eyes were galaxies. You seek to sever the bonds that were forced upon you. Aria nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I do. Then tell me, said the goddess, what you are without them. Aria opened her mouth and stopped. The words she'd carried all her life, I'm weak, I'm wolfless, I'm nothing, rose first, but they burned away before she could speak them. She closed her eyes. I don't know. The light around her dimmed. Then we begin. The first test came as memory. She was back in the Bloodfang village, 18 years old, standing before Kyle. The air was thick with laughter. Cold, cruel laughter. He had just rejected her. His hand still hovered near her face, not in affection, but in dismissal. "I reject you," he'd said, his voice sweet with mockery. "You're defective, Aria. You have no wolf. You have no worth." The crowd had watched, eager for a show. She'd tried not to cry, but tears came anyway. The mark burned into her neck that night, binding humiliation to her skin. The goddess's voice rippled through the scene. "Why did you accept his judgment of your worth?" Aria looked at her younger self and felt the ache like an old scar reopening. "Because I believed him," she said. "Because everyone did. And I was tired of fighting alone. Do you still believe him?" Aria lifted her chin. "No. I survived him." The scene shattered. Now she stood in a palace hall, golden light spilling through tall windows. Damon stood before her, not furious, not cruel, just tired and quiet. He reached for her hand. "Stay," he said softly. "You're the only thing that keeps me sane." Warmth flooded her chest. The goddess's voice came again, softer now. "Would you stay if he asked it of you forever?" Aria's hand trembled. "I love him," she said honestly, "but I can't live only for him. That's not love. That's another cage." The goddess's face flickered, unreadable. "Then what is love to you?" Aria swallowed. "It's choice. It's walking beside someone, not behind them. It's wanting them, not needing them." The hall faded. Now there was nothing but endless light again, and Aria was alone. No Kale, no Damon, no Mark, no magic. Just herself. The goddess circled her, voice like wind. "Who are you when you are completely alone?" The question rang like thunder. Aria dropped to her knees. She felt stripped bare. No wolf, no bond, no power. Just a girl who had been hurt too many times. Her voice broke. "I'm the girl who survived. Who kept walking when everyone said I was worthless. Who chose compassion when hate was easier." The light around her pulsed brighter. "I'm the one who found strength in softness. Who learned that silence isn't weakness. It's waiting." She lifted her head, eyes shimmering. "And I don't need a bond to have worth. I don't need a mate to be whole. But I choose Damon. Not because fate demands it, because he sees me." The silence stretched, then exploded in radiance. Her rejection scar ignited, searing but not painful. The burning turned to warmth, and the old mark peeled away like ash in wind. In its place, a new symbol appeared, a crescent moon encircled by stars, glowing silver and pure. The goddess smiled, for the first time gentle. "You have faced truth without breaking. You are not bound. You are balance." Light poured through Aria, filling every corner of her soul. The pain, the humiliation, the endless echo of Kale's voice, all of it dissolved. What remained was calm, deep and unshakable. "Go," said the goddess. "The dawn waits for you. The cursed and the conqueror both need your choice." The pool's light rose like a tide, swallowing her once more. When Aria's eyes opened again, she was kneeling at the edge of the pool, the temple's torches burning low. Hours must have passed. Her reflection glowed faintly. Silver eyes, luminous skin, the crescent mark shining where shame once lived. For the first time in her life, she felt no fear, no weight, no command humming under her skin. Above, thunder rolled again, but this time it sounded like applause. She rose to her feet, the moonlight following her like a promise. "Kale Bloodfang," she whispered into the quiet, her voice steady as steel. "You took my pain. Now you'll see what I became because of it." And with that she climbed toward the light, toward the dawn that waited for her return. The first gray light of dawn crept through the high windows of the palace, by the time Aria emerged from the underground temple. Moonlight still clung to her skin, faint and shimmering, like she carried a piece of the heavens inside her. Her steps were silent but sure. She no longer hid her neck or her eyes. The scar that once marked her shame was now a symbol of power, an iridescent crescent ringed with silver runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air above the palace had changed. It was calmer, thinner, charged with something sacred. Even the guards at the staircase lowered their weapons instinctively as she passed. They didn't understand why, only that something greater than fear moved through her presence now. Outside, thunder rolled again, far away, an echo of a storm breaking over the Bloodfang camp. Aria climbed the steps to the main hall. The corridors were crowded with soldiers and healers preparing for battle. The smell of iron and herbs filled the air. No one stopped her. Every pair of eyes that met hers flickered with confusion, then awe. She found Damon in the great hall, armored but pale, his breath shallow. He was fastening his gauntlet when she entered. The silver glow in his eyes flickered like a candle fighting wind. Moon's bane venom had already begun to spread. He looked up and froze. Aria. His voice was a rasp. She smiled softly. I told you I'd come back. He stepped toward her, but the effort cost him. His knees nearly buckled. She caught him, her small hands bracing against his chest plate. Don't, she said. You need your strength. Damon stared at her, the glow under her skin, the serenity in her expression. You passed the trial. I faced myself, she whispered, and I didn't break. He touched the edge of her crescent mark, awe flickering through his exhaustion. You look like the moon decided to make you her child. She did, Aria said simply. The goddess gave me a choice, and I chose to return. Damon's gaze softened, pride and fear warring in his eyes. Kale won't wait. He's already gathered his men by the courtyard. He wants me at dawn. Then dawn will find us both there, she said. He shook his head weakly. No, you've done enough. He'll target you. You don't understand. He wants your power to finish what he started. Aria's tone sharpened, steady and unwavering. Then let him try. The beta entered, bowing stiffly but unable to hide the worry in his face. Majesty, the Bloodfang Prince demands your presence at the southern field. He's brought half his pack. His eyes darted toward Aria, widened. Moon and stars. What happened to her? Transformation, Damon said quietly. Sanctified by the goddess herself. The beta gave a cautious nod, though disbelief flickered behind his eyes. Then perhaps we have a chance after all. Celine appeared behind him, dressed in deep blue armor, her expression cold as always, but tinged with something like wonder. Majesty, if she truly carries the goddess's blessing, her presence may hold the curse in check. She's not a weapon, Damon warned. Celine's lips curved faintly. No, your majesty. She's a miracle. Aria ignored them. Her gaze had turned toward the windows where the first rays of sun crept across the courtyard. He's waiting. Damon reached for her hand. His fingers trembled, but his grip was firm. If anything happens to you... She silenced him with a look. It won't. The goddess said I am balance. That means fury needs peace. And you, Damon, have carried fury for far too long. He gave a weak laugh that didn't reach his eyes. You sound like her priestess now. Maybe I am, she said. Maybe that's what I was meant to be. Celine interrupted softly. It's time. Outside, horns blared, the same 3 notes that had haunted the night. Kyle had arrived for the duel. The march through the palace was silent except for the clank of armor and the whisper of banners stirring in the wind. Damon's guards flanked him in tight formation. Aria walked at his side, the air around her faintly glowing, making the rain hiss as it touched her. When they reached the courtyard, the Bloodfang pack waited, a tide of scarlet cloaks and snarling wolves. At their head stood Kyle, his sword gleaming black in the light, his smile all venom and charm. He saw Aria and tilted his head. So the little Omega learned a few new tricks. Aria met his gaze without flinching. Tricks don't burn gods, Kyle. Truth does. Kale laughed, slow and cruel. We'll see how much truth you have when your king's heart stops beating. He looked at Damon. Are you ready to die for Her Majesty? Damon stepped forward, silver light cutting through the gray dawn. I'm ready to end you. Kale's grin widened. Good. I poisoned you well enough that this should be entertaining. Aria's power flared beside Damon, a shield of moonlight spilling across the wet stones. You'll touch no one, she said, her voice low but carrying across the field. Kyle's laughter died, replaced by a flash of irritation. Still defiant. I remember when you trembled at a glance. I trembled because I didn't know who I was, she said. Now I do. Kyle's smirk returned, brittle at the edges. Then let's remind you. He drew his blade and shouted a single word in an ancient tongue. The runes on Aria's neck burned white-hot. She staggered, gasping. Damon roared, half-shifting, his claws bursting through his gauntlets as he caught her before she fell. Kale's laughter rang across the courtyard. The bond lives, little moon. You can't run from what I built. But Aria straightened, her eyes glowing brighter. No, she said through clenched teeth, because you built it on lies. The light from her mark surged outward, shattering the invisible hold Kale had over her. The ground trembled. Kale's expression twisted. Anger, disbelief, then fear. She took one step forward, her aura expanding like dawn chasing away the night. The goddess freed me, Kyle. You have no power here. Kale snarled, signaling his soldiers forward, but none moved. They were staring, frozen, as the air around Aria shimmered with silver fire. Damon's curse flared in his veins, but when her light touched him, the pain dulled. The venom hissed and recoiled as if even poison bowed to her. Kale backed up, sword trembling slightly. What are you? Aria's voice was calm and clear. Balance, the end of your control. And with that, the dawn broke fully, pouring gold and silver across the field, lighting both wolf and man alike. The battle had begun. The first rays of sunlight spilled across the courtyard, turning the rain into threads of gold. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Wolves crouched at the edges, soldiers frozen, breaths held. Then Kale moved. His sword came up like a flash of black lightning, cutting through the mist. Damon met it mid-arc, claws sparking against steel. The impact was thunder. The ground cracked beneath their feet. Kale's blade slid past Damon's guard and grazed his side, drawing a thin line of smoke where the poisoned metal touched flesh. Damon ignored it, shoving him back with the strength of a storm. All around them, the air shimmered with power. Guards stumbled away, unable to bear the pressure of two alphas colliding. Wolves from both sides whined and dropped to their knees, ears flat. Aria stood at the edge of the circle, her hands clenched at her sides. The light under her skin pulsed in rhythm with their strikes, each blow, each snarl echoing inside her chest. Kale grinned, eyes bright with mania. You're slowing, Majesty. Feel the venom yet? Damon's reply was a growl. You talk too much. He lunged again, claws meeting steel. Kale twisted away, fluid as smoke, and caught him across the ribs. Damon stumbled, blood dark against his armor. The poison hissed, spreading purple veins up his chest. Aria's heart slammed against her ribs. She could feel the venom's echo inside her own pulse, a black vibration that threatened to drag her down. She took a step forward, but Selene caught her arm. Stay back, the advisor warned. "If you break the circle, he'll lose focus." Aria tore her arm free. "He's dying." Celine's eyes flickered with something like respect. "Then pray your goddess meant what she said." Kale's laughter sliced through the noise. "Look at your king, little Omega. The mighty shadow crest brought to his knees by a drink and a curse." Damon straightened, wiping blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. Still standing. Kale's smile faltered for an instant before twisting again. Not for long. He shifted, his wolf ripping through skin and armor, a huge beast of black fur and burning amber eyes. Poison steamed from his claws. Damon followed, his own form bursting forth in silver and gray. The impact of their collision shook the ground. Stone shattered. Windows screamed. Aria stepped forward until she could see them clearly. Silver and black, fury and poison locked in a dance that would end only when one stopped moving. The black wolf raked claws across Damon's flank, tearing through armor and flesh. The silver wolf retaliated, slamming him into a wall with bone-cracking force. Kale rolled to his feet, foam and blood dripping from his muzzle. "You can't win," his voice echoed through the bond. "Every shift brings you closer to death." Damon didn't answer. He lunged again, faster this time, teeth finding Kale's shoulder. The black wolf screamed, twisting free, leaving a trail of fire behind. Aria felt the moment the poison surged. Damon staggered, his limbs trembling, his light flickering. She could see the venom crawling toward his heart. Without thinking, she crossed the circle. "Aria, no!" Celine's voice was lost in the roar. Aria ran into the storm of power. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, but she didn't. The closer she came, the more the air burned. But the silver in her veins pushed back. She raised her hands, and light flared outward like wings. Kale turned just as she reached them. "You again?" he snarled. "Still trying to play savior?" Aria's voice was steady. "No. I'm here to finish what you started." She pressed her palms to the earth. The runes on her neck blazed, answering the blood in the stones. The field filled with light, cold, pure, unstoppable. Kale's spellwork cracked, lines of power snapping like cords under strain. Kale stumbled, disoriented. Damon saw the opening and lunged, jaws clamping around the black wolf's throat. But Kale was faster than he looked. He twisted, one claw finding Damon's chest. Deep, brutal, final. The king roared and fell to one knee, the poison roaring through his veins like wildfire. Aria screamed. The light around her shattered into raw energy, swirling toward them both. She didn't think. She simply moved, throwing herself between them. Her hands met Kyle's wrist mid-strike. The moment their skin touched, everything stopped. Kyle's fury, Damon's pain, the venom's scream, all of it rushed into her. Her body convulsed as darkness and rage poured through her, black fire twisting up her arms. But she didn't break. The goddess's mark on her neck flared blinding white. The darkness met the light and dissolved. Kale's eyes widened. No, this isn't... Aria's voice was calm. "You bound me to your curse. I unbind myself to your soul." With a final surge, she pulled the poison and fury out of him. Kyle screamed as the energy left his body, his wolf shrinking, collapsing into the mud. When the light faded, he lay gasping, powerless, eyes empty of their fire. Aria let go. The silver glow faded from her hands, leaving only trembling fingers and quiet breath. Kale stared up at her, disbelief turning to fear. "What did you do?" She looked down at him. "I showed mercy." She stepped aside. "Leave." "Never return. The goddess may forgive you, but I won't." Kale's body convulsed once more. He pushed himself to his knees, eyes flicking toward Damon, who was struggling to rise. "You'll regret this, both of you." "No," Aria said softly. "We already paid the price." She turned to Damon. The silver wolf was fading, bleeding back into the man. His body shook with the effort to breathe. The venom still coiled inside him, faint but deadly. Aria fell beside him, cradling his face. "Hold on. Please." Damon's voice was a rasp. "You stopped him." She pressed a trembling kiss to his forehead. "Not yet. Not completely." Then she lowered her lips to his and let her power flow again. Silver meeting darkness, moonlight meeting venom. The poison fought her, biting, burning, but she pushed deeper. The world went white. When the light faded, Damon's heartbeat was steady beneath her hand. The curse was gone. The field was silent except for the rain. She looked up at the sky, at the sun breaking through the clouds. Her voice came out as a whisper. "It's over." Damon's hand found hers, weak but alive. "No," he murmured. "It's beginning." And as the Bloodfang banners fell, torn by wind and light, the wolves of 5 kingdoms bowed their heads, to the Alpha King who survived his curse, and to the rejected Omega who saved him. The courtyard lay silent after the storm. Rain turned the ground into silver pools that reflected the pale dawn, and smoke curled from the shattered torches still clinging to life. Bodies of fallen soldiers and scattered weapons littered the field, but the air, once heavy with rage, was now still. At the center of the ruin, Damon lay motionless. His armor was torn open across his chest, the silver glow that once lived in his eyes dimmed to gray. Aria knelt beside him, her fingers trembling as they traced the faint pulse at his throat. It fluttered weakly beneath her touch, a thread ready to snap. Around them, the remaining guards and wolves stood frozen in a wide circle. No one dared move or speak. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting. "Stay with me," she whispered. Her voice broke on the words. "Please, Damon, stay with me." His eyes flickered open just a little, the corners of his lips twitching into the faintest smile. "You kept your promise," he murmured. "I wasn't going to let you die," she said, trying to steady her breath. "Not after everything." He coughed, a sound too wet to be good. "Aria, the poison. It's gone," she lied, but she could feel it still, slow, deep, hiding near his heart. The silver veins on his arms had gone dark again, curling like smoke beneath his skin. The seer, leaning on her staff, limped toward them. Her voice was hoarse, filled with awe. "He's alive because of you, child. But the venom is ancient. It clings to what it loves." Aria turned toward her. "Tell me what to do." The seer shook her head. "This is beyond healing. Even the goddess would demand balance for such mercy." Aria looked down at Damon again, her jaw set. "Then I'll pay it." She placed both hands over his heart, the memory of the goddess's voice whispering in her mind. "You are balance." Moonlight rippled under her palms, spreading through his chest in soft waves. She felt his heartbeat falter, then catch. But the venom resisted, black and slick, twisting like a living thing. She closed her eyes, reaching deeper. The world around her vanished. There was no rain, no soldiers, no dawn, only the rhythm of his pulse and the darkness coiled within. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You don't get to take him." The poison surged up, burning through her veins as if mocking her defiance. She gasped, but didn't stop. Every breath she took pulled the darkness out of him and into herself. The pain seared through her arms, her chest, her throat, but she kept going. "Aria," Damon rasped, his hand weakly catching her wrist. "Stop, you'll—" She met his eyes, tears cutting through the dirt on her cheeks. "I told you. I choose you." Then she leaned down and kissed him. It wasn't a kiss of desire. It was life itself, pouring from one soul into another. Her light flowed into him in waves, burning away the black veins, filling the cracks the curse had left behind. Every touch of her lips was warmth, forgiveness, love. The light grew brighter, flooding the courtyard in silver and white. Soldiers shielded their eyes. Wolves bowed their heads, trembling under the sudden purity of it. And when it faded, Aria was still. She slumped against Damon's chest, motionless, her hair tangled and soaked. The crescent mark on her neck glowed softly, then dimmed to quiet silver. Damon stirred, his eyes snapping open, his heartbeat steady, his body whole. The pain and poison were gone. He sat up, dizzy, realizing her power had replaced his curse with peace. "Aria," he whispered, shaking her gently. "Aria, open your eyes." Nothing. He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice raw. "You stubborn, impossible girl. You gave me everything, and now you think you can just leave?" A faint glow shimmered against her lips. Then, softly, she exhaled. Her eyes opened, slow and dazed. "You talk too much," she murmured, voice fragile but alive. A shaky laugh escaped him, half sob, half relief. He pulled her against him, holding her like he never wanted to let go. "Don't ever do that again." "You'd rather I let you die?" "I'd rather you lived," he whispered. "Always." She smiled faintly. "Looks like we both got what we wanted then." The seer stepped forward, tears gleaming in her clouded eyes. "The curse is gone," she said softly. "The Moonborn's balance has restored what was lost." Selene approached too, bowing her head slightly. "Majesty, Queen Aria." Aria blinked, startled. "Queen?" Selene gave a thin smile. "The bond between you is not fate's leash anymore. It's your choice. The people will see it. They'll follow the ones who brought light to the darkest dawn in centuries." Damon looked down at her, thumb brushing the silver mark at her throat. "You saved me, Aria, but more than that, you freed me." She leaned her head against his shoulder, exhaustion pulling at her limbs. "We freed each other." All around them, the wolves of both packs slowly lowered their heads. The old laws of hierarchy meant nothing now. For the first time in generations, an alpha bowed not to dominance, but to devotion. The rain eased into mist. The sun broke through, gilding the ruined courtyard with gold. Damon rose to his feet, still holding Aria close. Together they faced what remained of the Bloodfang warriors. Kale was gone. Whether he'd fled or vanished into the storm didn't matter. The curse was ended. The war was done. Aria turned to Damon, her voice soft but sure. "What happens now?" He smiled, a small, tired, beautiful thing. "Now we build something worth all this loss," she nodded. "Then let's begin." As they walked back toward the palace, hand in hand, the wolves behind them howled, not in mourning, but in salute. The sound rose into the dawn, echoing across the 5 kingdoms like a promise. And high above, in the thinning clouds, a sliver of the moon lingered long past morning, as if watching, as if proud. The day after the battle, the palace smelled of rain and renewal. The shattered stones had been swept clean, the bodies buried with honor. Flowers, wild and white, were laid along the courtyard walls where the blood had dried. For the first time in memory, silence felt like peace, not fear. Aria woke in the royal chambers, sunlight falling across her face. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. The last thing she recalled was Damon's heartbeat against her ear, the world burning silver around them. Now the only sound was birdsong and the faint creak of the wind through the balcony curtains. She sat up slowly. Her reflection in the mirror stopped her breath. Her mark, The crescent surrounded by faint runes had faded from bright silver to soft moon gray. It no longer glowed, no longer burned. It simply was a quiet part of her. A knock sounded. "Enter," she said. Celine stepped inside, her armor replaced with a gown of deep blue silk. For once, she looked almost human, not carved from frost. "You should be resting." "I've done enough resting for a lifetime," Aria said, pulling the blanket aside. "What's happening outside?" Celine hesitated, as if weighing her words. "The 5 kingdoms have sent envoys. They want to know what happens next." Aria smiled faintly. "They want to know who rules." Celine inclined her head. "Damon insists that answer belongs to you." Aria froze. "To me?" Celine's eyes softened. "You broke the curse. You calmed the storm. The wolves follow the moon now, not the blood. You may not want a crown, but the people already call you queen." Aria turned toward the window. Below, the courtyard was filled with movement. Wolves rebuilding, children carrying water, healers tending to the wounded. The red banners of Bloodfang had been burned, replaced by white and silver ones, painted with the symbol of the crescent moon. Her mark. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "No," Celine said gently. "That's why you deserve it." When Selena left, Aria stood alone before the balcony. The wind caught her hair, lifting the dark strands as the sunlight turned them to bronze. She breathed deep and slow, tasting the scent of wet earth and morning. Freedom. The word had meant so many things. Once it meant escape, then survival. Now it meant choice. Footsteps behind her. She turned and Damon stood there, no crown, no armor, just a simple black tunic. The faint scar across his ribs glowed pale in the light. He looked younger somehow, or maybe simply unburdened. "Good morning," he said, his voice quiet, rough with disuse. "Morning," she replied, smiling. "How do you feel?" "Alive," he said, and the way he said it made her throat tighten. He walked closer. "Celine told me the envoys are waiting for us." "Us?" He nodded. "You think I'd face a council of power-hungry alphas without the woman who ended my curse?" She arched a brow. "They'll call me an Omega again." "They can call you whatever they like," he said softly. "We know the truth." He offered his hand. She took it. Together they walked through the halls that once echoed with screams and now hummed with quiet rebuilding. When they entered the throne room, the guards stepped back and bowed, not to the king, but to both of them. The throne itself had been repaired overnight, its cracked stone replaced with polished obsidian streaked with silver veins. Damon gestured for her to sit beside him, not behind. The assembled envoys murmured among themselves until the eldest, a white-furred alpha from the western reach, stepped forward. "Majesty," he said, bowing low, "the packs are confused. The Bloodfang heir is gone. The old laws have broken. What now?" Damon glanced at Aria. "You tell them." Aria took a slow breath and stood. Every eye followed her. She could feel the weight of centuries of tradition pressing against her. Every law that said Omegas bowed. Every story that ended with them silent. She met their gaze and didn't flinch. "There will be new laws," she said. "No wolf will be cast out for weakness. No rejection mark will bind a soul. No alpha will own what the moon has made free." A murmur swept through the room. Shock, disbelief, a hint of fear. She went on. "For too long, we've believed that power meant dominance, that only the strongest should lead. But strength without compassion destroys itself." She lifted her chin. "I'm not here because fate chose me. I'm here because I survived, and because I chose to keep fighting." Damon rose beside her, his voice firm and clear. "She speaks for us both. The Moon Kingdom will stand on equality, not hierarchy. We rule together, or not at all. Silence followed. Then the old alpha lowered his head. Then perhaps, he said slowly, the age of kings is over, and the age of balance begins. When the council dispersed, Aria remained standing, her hands still in Damon's. The weight that had followed her since rejection, the shame, the fear, the endless need to prove herself, was gone. All that was left was peace. Later that evening, she stood again on the balcony, watching lanterns bloom across the city below. Wolves sang in the distance, their howls soft, joyful, like prayers carried to the sky. Damon came up behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. She leaned back against him, smiling. "Never." The wind stirred, carrying the scent of rain and moonlight. For the first time, she didn't feel like she belonged to anyone, or to destiny. She simply was. "I'll never stop choosing you," she whispered. He kissed her temple. "And I'll never stop earning it." They stood there in silence as the moon rose, high and full. Below, the kingdom thrived. Above, the stars burned bright. Between them, a promise lingered, one not bound by fate or magic, but by choice. And so the rejected Omega became queen, not by destiny's decree, but by her own. Months passed, and the palace, once a place of chains and screams, became a home of laughter and light. The 5 kingdoms, divided for generations, were slowly learning what it meant to live without fear. Traders from distant packs filled the markets again. Pups played openly in courtyards, and the moon banners flew side by side with the crests of the old clans. It was the beginning of something new, an age not of dominance, but of balance. From the balcony of the Moon Palace, Queen Aria watched as the rebuilding continued. Below her, wolves of every rank worked together, the sound of hammers and voices blending like music. She had long since traded her servants' dresses for flowing silver robes, but she still preferred to walk barefoot on the marble floors, feeling the world beneath her feet. Sometimes she still woke at night to echoes, Kale's voice, Damon's roar, her own scream in the throne room. But when she looked to her side and saw Damon breathing softly beside her, the memories lost their bite. Scars had become symbols. Pain had become purpose. The door opened quietly behind her. Damon entered, his hair damp from training, the edge of his sword glinting faintly. He smiled when he saw her. "Already up?" he asked. "You never rest." "Queens don't sleep," she said lightly, turning to face him. "They worry too much." He came to stand beside her, gazing out at the horizon where the sea of forests met the rising sun. "The council meets in an hour," he said. "Celine will want to discuss the new refuge law." "She's right," Aria replied. "If we truly mean to protect the rejected, we need more than words. There are still packs in the West exiling their Omegas. They need a place to go." Damon nodded. "And they'll have it. The Moon Sanctuary is nearly ready." Aria smiled, proud. A home for those who never had one. For a moment, silence stretched comfortably between them. Damon reached for her hand, thumb tracing the faint crescent on her wrist. "Do you ever think about her?" he asked quietly. Aria blinked. "Who?" "The goddess." Aria looked up at the pale moon still visible in the morning sky. "Every day. Sometimes I still hear her voice when it's quiet, reminding me that balance isn't peace. It's the space between chaos and calm. It's choosing both." Damon chuckled softly. "You sound wiser than I ever did." "I had a good teacher," she teased. He raised a brow. "Me?" She smiled. "You taught me to fight. The goddess taught me why." Their laughter faded into a gentle stillness. Outside, a pair of young wolves chased each other through the garden, their howls bright and unburdened. The sound made Aria's heart swell. "They'll never know what it was like before," she murmured. "Good," Damon said. "They shouldn't." She turned to him. And if another war comes? Then they'll have the story of the queen who chose herself, he said softly. And they'll remember that even when fate turns cruel, courage can rewrite it. A knock interrupted them. The door opened, and the beta entered, bowing low. Majesty, he said. A messenger has arrived from the southern borders. He claims to have seen a mark like the queen's, another Moonborn. Aria and Damon exchanged a look. The air between them shifted, half surprise, half recognition. Where? Aria asked. Beyond the Frostlands, the beta said. He says she bears the same crescent, but hers burns gold instead of silver. Damon folded his arms. Gold? Aria's pulse quickened. The goddess spoke of balance, light and dark, fury and peace. Maybe I wasn't the only one. Damon studied her expression. Do you want to find her? Aria turned back to the window, where the horizon glowed with the promise of dawn. If she exists, she'll be hunted, she said quietly. And if she's a Moonborn, she'll need someone who understands. He hesitated. The kingdom still needs you. She smiled gently. Then it's good they have a king. Damon caught her hand. You're not going alone. I wouldn't dream of it, she said. You're too stubborn to let me. He laughed softly, the sound warm and real. You make it hard to say no. Good, she said, because this is only the beginning. The beta bowed again and left them alone. Damon looked at her, his expression softening. Do you ever regret it? Aria tilted her head. What? Everything. The curse, the rejection, the trials, the crown. She thought for a long moment, then shook her head. No. Because without all of it, I wouldn't have found myself. Damon smiled. Then maybe that's the real gift the goddess gave you. Not power, Aria agreed, but peace. Outside, the bells began to toll for council, the sound deep and steady. Aria looked at the horizon one last time before turning to Damon. Let's go remind them what kind of world we're building. He offered his arm. She took it. Together they walked toward the grand hall, where sunlight spilled through high windows and painted the floor in gold and silver. As they entered, the guards bowed, not to the king or the queen alone, but to both. To unity, to balance, and somewhere far beyond the mountains, in a forest untouched by wolves or men, a faint, golden light flickered against the dawn. Another mark, another Moonborn awakening. The goddess watched from the shadows of the clouds, her voice a whisper on the wind. The balance continues. And so ended the story of the rejected Omega who became queen, and began the legend of the Moonborn who would follow.